Welcome back to Navigating the Shift. Today, Annabelle and I are going to talk about kind of some newsy things, some updates on what's going on in the world, and hopefully the most part of it is like, oh yes, you end up feeling we are making progress. The Great Awakening, the planetary transformation is underway, and I can tell you personally, I am feeling it into my heart and then down to my bones that we won, we're on the way, freedom is here. It's just got to play out a little bit longer. So why don't you go ahead and start, Annabelle?
Okay. Some of the things that I found along the way, I seem to find as in between these videos that I'll just note down little things that I spot as we go along. A fair bit of corruption has been found over this week. One U.S. attorney in Los Angeles, Jose Pisa, I think is his name, was arrested for accepting $1.5 million worth of benefits to do his job. The U.S. Education Department has discovered $1 billion in anonymous funding to higher education institutions that they have to go and do a bit more research on. And in terms of donors to the Illuminati Party, which you can actually go and have a look at their website, it's quite blatantly out there with all their views and their aims and all this sort of thing. Though I couldn't find the donors page, but one of my Facebook friends had found it. One of the donors was Steve Bing, who recently apparently fell or threw himself off the top of a building at the age of 55 and died. And there are a huge amount of names on the list of donors there that are all the wealthy people that you can possibly imagine on that list as part of that group. So that's, I'll see if I can find the link to the donors. I think it's just an image. So you might actually have to go to Facebook to go in and have a look at it. On 31st of June, Federal Review says that the CDC COVID tests were likely contaminated, they found. 19th of June, the feds take down a replacement site for Backpage, which .com promotes prostitution and child trafficking. So as soon as they take down one, these people put up another one. They're just hammering them, just grabbing them one after the other. One curious thing, the 22nd of June, was on the New Zealand website. So we know a lot of the elite flew to New Zealand when the COVID started to happen, because they've all got their little safe houses there, deep underground, or maybe they don't even need them underground there because it's a fairly clean air, isolated place. There are no country borders. It's a single, set of 3 islands. And parked right smack in the middle of the viaduct, the main harbour of Auckland, which is the biggest city in New Zealand, is Robert Maxwell's yacht, the one that used to be called Lady Ghislaine. Oh. Yeah, and the journalists went down and asked the staff who is on board, and they refused to say. So I don't know how you can park in the viaduct without at least customs people going on board and finding out who they are. They haven't been able to find out who's on there, but it's been parked there since February or March.
Whoa.
So somebody is possibly hiding out on it there.
Somebody?
Somebody. Maybe the obvious one, I don't know. But
so is it in international waters or is it in New Zealand waters?
No, it's in New Zealand. It's in the middle of the harbour of the main city.
Wow.
Somebody let it in. So, and they're not allowed to get off the boat, I don't know. Interesting. And the other thing was a letter that actually came from Archbishop Carlo Vigano, who was kind of like the ambassador to the Vatican, to the USA. Mm-hmm. He wrote a very powerful letter to President Trump. This is back at the beginning of this month, talking about, how he knows what's going on, that there's all this huge war that Trump has been talking about being with the hidden enemy. And he also said there is deep church as well as deep state. But he said, we are not all part of it. Like, he really wanted to show that there are two sides. There's a war inside the Vatican Church or Catholic Church as well. And don't tar us all with the same brush. So I can find it on True News. I'll see if I can also find it written, which is much quicker to look through. The True News one gets into stuff which may or may not be verified information. So I'm not completely happy about just giving you that. But if I can find it written up, I'll certainly put the link in.
Good to know there's good guys in a church as well. It's so hard to think that they're all just not good. Let's leave it at that. Yeah. Well, some interesting stuff has come about in American politics. Recently, the Federal Appeals Court, which was looking at the Lieutenant General Flynn case, ordered the judge to dismiss the case. Basically, they found that Flynn was set up. So if you don't know, Flynn was working in the Trump administration. He had also worked in the Obama administration. He was an advisor, and he was set up. And a lot of things that shouldn't have happened. And he was coerced into saying, "Yeah, I lied," and taking the judgment. Yeah. So it's being turned around. I think there's one more step that could possibly the judge could do to delay this. But once this is done, then he's no longer on a gag order, and he can tell what he knows. Like I said before, he knows all about it. And as what's been some of the things that's been coming out about that were the notes from Peter Strzok about the meetings. And Peter Strzok was the FBI agent who was part of a big part of the Crossfire Hurricane, which is the one, of course, who was looking at Trump's campaign. And in the notes, there's notes from a meeting, and in that meeting is Obama and Biden and some of the Susan Rice and the other players in that. And in note says that it was actually Biden who suggested, can we go after the Logan Act to get at Flynn? So, Biden's going around going, I know nothing about it. I never knew anything about it. And Obama's going on about, I guarantee we never get involved. And I would never have. I can absolutely 100% guarantee. And I'm guaranteeing it. I'm like, well, evidently, those guarantees weren't worth that much. It's kind of sad, but stuff is coming up. And evidently, there's even more that Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, is looking at, some more information that has been released and not leaked for once, right? So there's going to be a lot of head spinning. And with that coming up,
she's a crazy, amazing lawyer.
Is indeed. So one of the things I just want to put out as a heads up to people is when a whole bunch of information is about to come out, what happens? You got the fake events, the FFs. So it looks like they're warming up to drop some UFO stuff to try to distract you. You've got coronavirus, look over here, look at Black Lives Matter, don't notice this other stuff that's going on. So be ready for it, be aware. I had an incident just last night where if I wasn't paying attention to my spidey senses, I probably would have been kidnapped or something bad would have happened. And also if I didn't have my dog there rushing after two guys and scaring the shit out of them. Basically, there's nothing like having a dog with a little bit of a pit bull in him, and it's like really nice and a loud voice. So just, keep your awareness up. Doesn't mean be scared, but listen, if you get that person doesn't feel right, get yourself out of that situation. Stuff is being fluffed up. And speaking of stuff being fluffed up, I found a video and some other information by a woman who did some 2 years undercover in a lot of movements, but specifically the one she talked about is called the Sunrise Movement. And what they do is they draw in teenagers, middle school and high school age kids, so as young as 12, and just as high school graduates, they pull them in and start training them how to basically be involved in protests and movements and things like that for political gain, only not just to be involved in protests, but how to twist the information, they had, like, for instance, they split them up into red teams and green teams. And the green team go out there and they look like just peaceful protesters. They're not doing anything wrong. They get to the youngest ones they possibly can in front. The red team behind them is doing everything they can to get arrested. And they want to get as young a person as possible arrested. And they train them how to do it, how to get out there. And, these are kids who are not of legal age to give consent.
That
and they're
sounds
doing
like
this
Nazis too, don't they? Didn't they hire all the Nazis?
Right.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that.
Mm.
They had some Zoom training things that they recorded. We're talking about how to use trigger events. What are trigger events, she asked us. Oh, coronavirus. Yes, that's right. Oh, also, school shootings are trigger events. That trigger events can be created or they can come around and we can use them.
Wow, right up there.
And what do they use them for? To escalate and polarize. They say this right outside. They want to polarize. They want to escalate. They're training these kids how to get arrested. She said, burning buildings is a powerful and legitimate form of protesting.
Good Lord.
So
how
these
are
poor
they
kids
still running? Are they, I mean, that's training terrorists, basically.
And they are, of course, associated with Black Lives Matter and all the other groups. This is,
but yeah, like, whoever else. Yeah.
So it's designed to look like these young children, these young little Gretas are organically coming out and having this movement. And they say it's for social justice and Green New Deal, where it's the evil, it's a standard thing, evil capitalists, they don't care, we're going to take over, and social justice for the poor Black people and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's all scam, and it's not organic. There are a lot of adult coordinators that get these kids in there.
I kind of wonder if, with the new kids coming up in the world, will they see through it? Not all of them necessarily will, but how many of them will go, I agree that social justice is good, but I don't like hurting people.
Yeah, I suspect, and this goes into a little bit of a woo-woo kind of place, but that a lot of these kids are abused. You're in a traumatic family situation, and or are non-soul players. They're just part of the matrix, playing their role, being programmed appropriately to do their jobs, to whatever. But it's being exposed. That's the good news.
And we were talking about the event again, the solar flash. You said you had some information that might have come in about that as well.
Oh, so the astrology I like is called shamanic astrology, and the founder is named Daniel G. Mario, and they had a webinar about the solstice and the eclipse. And just a little thing about Daniel G. Mario, 16, 17 years ago, he came to my house and gave readings to my best friend and I. And he was like, he wanted to see my daughter. I went, she had a reading while I picked my kids up from school, and he was like, he looked at my kids' charts, he goes, I want to see that little girl. And she was hiding in the table going, scary man. No, you don't get to see me. But he doesn't look like he's aged at all, which is interesting. So they did this webinar all about it. It was a group of people who do the same type of astrology. There's a link to their website below. And he was saying, they were talking about some of the myths. For instance, there's a Celtic myth, and they call Orion the great man, I think, and that the time will come when the cauldron of fire is held, and the sun is the great man holds the sun. So then he shows what the sky looks like with all the constellations laid out. Here's that image. You can see Orion, and up there is that, there's the sun where the eclipse happens, and it's in Orion's hand. And the other part of it has to do with being between the horns of Osiris, which is this other constellation over here, and those are the two horns, and you can see the sun there.
How often does that happen? Being in that position in the sky between the great hand and the horns.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't think, I mean, the sun does travel, and those constellations are fixed so that if it goes to that spot, it'll always be there. But having that happen during an eclipse, I think, is what's significant. And the whole trillium, the three planets that are in Capricorn, which is the old energy, all the structures, all that stuff, they are just like digging it up, changing it, throwing it out. He calls it recycling. It's like, we got to recycle this stuff. It's not all being thrown out. Someone's going to be recycled, but it's got to be sorted through first. That happens, oh God, I think like once every 7,000 years.
Oh, wow.
That three of them together in that place. So it's very rare. And he said, I know, it could be fake news or conspiracy theory, whatever, but the people talking about how the calendar was adjusted, and that really the end of the Aztec or Mayan calendar should have been that day, not back in 2012. And he said, and I don't know that much about the calendars and the Julian calendar and all of that. He said, but looking at what's going on in the sky, I'd say that's probably very likely. So, we're in an opening. It was, of course, a new moon. The moon's in front of the sun. And usually a new moon is what you set your intent for the next month. But when you have an eclipse, it's usually the next 6 months is how they look at it.
Yeah.
And he said, with the rest of what's going on, I'm saying, like, this is a really awesome time to set your intent going forward for the next great year, the next 26,000 years. He calls it that we're in the turning of the ages. He's been calling it that since the 70s. So, he's been around a long time.
Well, the Rosicrucians, even before that, used to talk about this as well, the turning of the ages. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, people have talked about that for a long time. I know that, like in comparison, when I used to do the Mercredan sessions and we got to that December 2012 point, and we got past that, we got to January, and I said, well, I wasn't expecting fireworks in the sky and crazy magic happening, but I would have thought something would have happened. And the answer that came back was it did happen, but it was a few days later. It was later in December. It's just that was the closest they could get when they were making a calendar thousands of years before to say, okay, right. And they didn't know what kind of calendar we would have by now. So they said it was winter solstice for you guys. But there must be a series of turning points. So even this one now, the solstice that we've just passed, must be a turning point. And you and I have both had times where we've woken up in the morning and felt like, yeah, we've made another step in the right direction, right? Where we are definitely on the right track. We've won. We've just got to play this out, clean it up. It's like seeing your house clean, but it's not clean yet. So you've just, okay, we're just going to go through a little bit there and sweep up a bit there and do a bit of dusting there. And
when I woke up this morning, I was like, it would be really nice if I really am in the new energy, the new earth. Maybe the dishes will be washed.
Yes, I've had that too. I look at my shower, I'm like,
wash them.
Look at the grout and it's looking a bit grubby. I'm like, yeah, the time will come when I will go clean.
I'm ready for that. I am ready for that. We're getting close.
We are. The media just adores making people scared. And even social media, most of the stuff on there is heavy stuff. And you can see even the spiritual people get dragged down into it and they want to fight the baddies. And I'm like, no, that's not the way to do this. Focus on what you want, which is light. And light, dark cannot exist. Just be powerful, keep shining, be smiley, and give love. Be good in your own area. Look after your own little community.
And you didn't miss what happened with the solstice eclipse. If you're going, oh, gee, I didn't remember, I didn't know then to set an intent. We're still in that window. There's a gateway, or portal, you can say, an opening between timelines. It's still going on at least to the end of the month. There's some other, it's an eclipse season. There's 3 eclipses. The third one in this series, I believe, is July 4th. Interesting for us in the US.
Wow.
That's a lunar. It was a lunar, then a solar, then a lunar. And going forward, June 29th is when we have the exact conjunction of Pluto and Jupiter again. Just the one other thing that Daniel was talking about, the solar eclipse was in Cancer, of course. So looking at the positive side of Cancer and the negative side of Cancer, and he was suggesting to focus in your intent setting on that. So the positive representation of Cancer is the parent or the responsible adult who is able to nourish the young until they come to adulthood and can take care of themselves. That's the whole Cancer Capricorn. The Cancer is the mother, the Capricorn is father. It's all been distorted, as we know, under the patriarchy and all that. The shadow side of Cancer is when you say, I love my children. I love my children, but not your children. I love my family, but not your family. I love my country, but not your country. So that whole push of, America first, but I kind of get it. But at the same time, we've got to sort of step out of that. Try to expand who your family is.
Yeah, I think some of the disclosure that's coming out about aliens at the moment, which there has been rumor in amongst the truthers that will be the final card they'll play, is the idea of that there's an alien invasion, when in fact it's just human pilots in craft that they've been working on for decades, and we know all about it. That's if they've still got control of that stuff. I don't know. But the MAGA thing is a good start, because he did need to bring business back and give jobs to the people in America. And they needed to see that he was drawing resources back in to look after America, because America's been bleeding for such a long time, giving billions of dollars to Israel and all the business to China and just so many things that have leaked money out of that country for such a long time. So to pull it all back in and consolidate a bit is certainly a good step in the right direction. And other countries are starting to talk the same thing. Like they're saying, well, we need to pull the jobs in. Oh, that's what Trump's doing. Oh, you know, and they've got this little fight going on of we're meant to hate Trump, but maybe he was right. You know, so trying to figure it out. But once you've got that stuff sorted, then you can start thinking, like you're saying, expanding out and seeing the whole of humanity as your family. And that maybe the discussion around aliens, although that's not their agenda, may actually make that happen. If there was a lot coming out around, there's possibly 36 other types of aliens in the world. I don't know where they came up with that number from. Good grief.
I know where they pulled it out of.
Where from?
Their butts.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. But I think when people start to look at the possibility of aliens, then they will see humanity as their family. They will see that you'll get that as a positive that'll come out of that discussion. That's what I reckon. So we'll see how that goes.
That's all for now.
It is.
Thanks for watching.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.